4 would be acts of service. Can vacuuming floors be an expression of love? Absolutely. Especially if the one that you are married to, the one that you live with, has this acts of service as their primary love language. I'm telling you, when you ease the burden of what they see all of life through serving. When you ease part of that burden, wow, it fills their love tank immediately. The last one is physical touch. And it's surprising to me that every time I've taught this over the years, when we do the assessments, and next week we're going to do these assessments together and discover what our language is. But every time we do that, it blows my mind, and it blows the men's mind to find out how many of them have physical touch as their love language. Physical touch is not sex. It's not about the bedroom. People with the gift of physical touch are touchy. They're touchy-feely. And some men are touchy-feely, but they just can't quite get it out yet. But it's in there because that's the way they're wired together. Now, I like the metaphor the first time I ever heard it. And the metaphor is this: inside every child is an emotional tank just waiting to be filled. And when a child feels loved, when their tank is full, that child develops normally and happily. Now, the opposite is true as well. And in fact, what we've discovered is much of the acting out and misbehaving in children is motivated by the cravings of an empty love tank. Does that make sense? Because they're not getting that emotional need met. But it's not just a childhood phenomenon. All of us cry out to be truly loved. Isolations, feeling of aloneness are devastating to the human psyche. That's why solitary confinement is considered the cruelest of punishments. So today we're going to look at two of these love languages and talk about how to keep the love fire going in our lives. Someone was talking to me some time ago about their marriage being on the rocks. And he made this statement: "We got some bad mojo going on at our house, Pastor." I didn't know what all he meant by the bad mojo, but here's what I'm thinking. Is it possible when two people are at each other all the time, when they're fighting, when they're critical, when they speak harshly, when they act out, is it possible they are doing so because their love tank has been drained and there's nothing there? It's just empty. And out of their emptiness, the acting out, the harshness, the yelling, the screaming is a cry for, a pleading for intimacy and to have my tank fill back up? I think so. That's what we're going to talk about these next 2 weeks. Number one today, let's talk about quality time, all right? And as we go through these, you kind of evaluate your own life, and then next week we'll do the assessment and really kind of nail down what our languages are. Quality time means, very, very simple. It just means giving someone your undivided attention. How many of you know that's not the same thing as sitting on the couch watching TV together? Not the same thing. Now, that's good, and you should have those times. I'm not saying that. But Netflix or HBO is really getting the attention right then, not your partner, not your kids or your parents or whatever. So how about this? Sitting on the couch with the TV off, looking at each other and talking. That is giving someone your undivided attention. Some of you guys are already going, I get it. And some of you girls are doing the same thing. I get that too. But that is called togetherness. Say that word, togetherness. It's taking a walk, just the two of you, or going out to eat. And this doesn't have to be two lovers. This can be two people who just love each other, two friends, same type of thing. Going out to eat, talking, without being on your cell phone. There's a difference in that too, right? Do you ever notice in a restaurant you can almost always tell the married couples from the dating couples? You know how that is? Y'all know how that is, right? Dating couples look at each other, and they talk, and they giggle, and they say, oh, you, and no, you, and no, okay, you. But married couples, not so much. You see them, they're just kind of gazing around, or they're pecking away at Instagram or Facebook, And they love each other. I'm not saying that, but that's just, we begin, does that make sense? You watch yourself the next time you and the one you love go to a restaurant. Just watch yourself and see how you do. Here's the deal. When you sit with your partner and you give him or her 20 minutes of your life, you are giving 20 minutes of life to that person. 20 minutes that you will never have again, but 20 minutes that were put to the best possible use in your relationship. So the primary aspect of quality time is togetherness. But togetherness is not the same thing as proximity. Say proximity. Those two go together, but they're not the same thing. Two people sitting in the same room are in close proximity, but that doesn't mean there's togetherness going on, because togetherness has to do with focused attention. When a dad sits on the floor and rolls a ball to his 2-year-old boy, the dad's attention is not focused on that ball, it's focused on that boy. That boy's receiving an emotional connection with the dad. For that brief moment, however long it lasts, they are together, not just in proximity. If, however, the dad is talking on the phone while he rolls the ball, that's another matter. Then his attention is diluted, and now they just become in proximity, and the togetherness is not there. Some couples think they're spending time together when in fact they're just in close proximity. I mean, you can live in the same house, be in the same room, but that doesn't mean you're experiencing togetherness. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about 24/7 kind of togetherness, because everybody needs their me time. Everyone needs their alone time. Nancy's always saying to me, "Don't you have somewhere to go?" And at first I was a little offended, and then I thought, I'll just ignore that. And she said, "No, seriously, don't you have somewhere to go?" Which it turned out good, because I found out I could go do stuff without asking permission. I feel like a real man now. You know, I can go do what I want to do. So quiet time is not that. It's when you're together. You have to spend all your time gazing into each other's eyes. That's not it. It just means that you, on purpose, carve out time each week to have an activity that creates some sense of togetherness, not just proximity. Does that make sense? Every single week you should be doing that, where each of you have focus on the other. For instance, Nancy's always amazed, and she's told you that here before, of my study habits. I started studying that way. I did it all through school, all through college, through graduate school, through postgraduate school. I've always done that, and so even today I still do. When I'm studying for a sermon, I'll have the TV on. I got my headphones on with some really cool music. I've got my computer. One side is on Facebook, the other side's on a sermon document that I'm editing. Got all this stuff going on. I'm not necessarily paying attention to any of it, but somehow that soothes the savage beast in me, I guess. She thought, and what she still does, thinks that's kind of cool and kind of amazing that I do that. What she does not think is cool and amazing is when she comes into my office and sits down in the chair next to me and wants to talk, and I simply add her into the mix. Now I've got the TV, and I've got the headphones, and I've got the sermon doc, and I've got the Facebook, and I've got her, and I add her into the mix. How many of you know that doesn't work? That ain't going to happen with this one. It ain't going to happen with yours either. Your man, your woman, however that fits you. Now she's been gently teaching me what she needs in this area of undivided attention and what I don't need. So I'm learning. By the way, most people who complain that they have a partner who never talks to me, he never talks to me, she never talks to me, they're not saying we never exchange words, because words are always exchanged. What they're saying is there's no sympathetic dialogue. Sympathetic dialogue is when two people are sharing their experiences, their thoughts, their feelings, their desires in a friendly or uninterrupted context. And if your partner's primary love language is quality time, this is not just important to them, this is a must for them. It's important to all of us, quality time is, but it is a must for someone who has this as their gift, because his or her primary vehicle for receiving emotional fulfillment and a true sense of love is this quality time. I talked with a couple years ago, and she was saying, I was doing some counseling with him, and she said, I just don't feel loved. And guys, help me out here. I just don't feel loved. His response was that, look this way, his response was this: I show her love all the time. I just bought her diamonds again last week. However, though she genuinely appreciated his gifts, because it was not her primary love languages, those gifts did not meet the emotional need for love. It meant something else, and everyone likes to receive nice gifts, and every woman, every man likes to receive nice gifts, but it did not fill her tank up. Possibly he had the gift, receiving gifts was his language, and that's how he filled his tank up, but it didn't fill her tank up. And part of the problem with them, of course, was that there was a man in the equation. Because for whatever reason, culture, upbringing, or the fact that we're just wired that way as men, this is a hard one for us. For most men, this is a hard one if you're living with someone that has this particular language. Too many men have been trained to analyze problems and create solutions. So when an issue comes up in a relationship, we see it as a project that needs to be completed or a problem that needs to be solved. So let me say to you men watching or here in this room, if you're in a relationship with a woman, and number one, you got to remember, number one, she is a woman. Women traditionally talk more than men. Just a fact, which makes sense because women are smarter than men. So, number one, they're going to talk more than you anyway. And number two, if you're in a relationship with a woman and she has quality time as her primary love language, well, God bless you and good luck. Kidding. This is a very satisfying thing when you learn how to fill your partner's love tank up if this is their particular gift. Now, let me give you some tips to do that just real quick. Here's some good tips for quality time. Number one, maintain eye contact while you're talking to them. That keeps your mind from wandering, and it communicates that he or she has your full attention. All right? Then number two, pay attention. Don't pretend you're listening while you're trying to look at Facebook or watch TV. That's pretend listening. Some of you are capable. I'm capable of hearing things that my wife says, No, I don't think that's right. You know, but don't do that, because that doesn't do anything for that person, and it's about them, not about you. Don't pretend, listen, pay attention. Number three, listen for feelings. In other words, what emotion is she or he experiencing? When you think you have the answer to their emotion, confirm it. For example, maybe it sounds to me like you're feeling disappointed because I forgot our anniversary. Now that gives, in my case, that would give her the chance to clarify her feelings. It also communicates, though, that I am listening intently to what she is saying to me. All right? Number four, observe body language. If you're talking to the one you love and their fists start clenching, their hands trembling, tears start welling up in their eyes, their brow gets real furrowed, and their eyes start coming together, that might give you clues as to another road you could probably go down in that conversation, right? Something's going on. Sometimes body language speaks one message while words speak another message. So ask for clarification to make sure you know what she or he is really thinking or feeling. And of course, be smart about it. If you walk into the room and she's already laid out the nunchucks and baseball bat, you can probably figure it out without asking. That make sense? No? Wasn't funny? Okay. I guess it's just at our house. No. Number five, refuse to interrupt. Research has indicated that the average individual listens for only 17 seconds before they feel like they've got to interrupt the conversation and inject his or her ideas. If I give you my undivided attention while you're talking, my desire then is to discover your thoughts and feelings, not shift the conversation back to me. It's about filling your love tank up at that particular moment. By the way, I learned something early on in my ministry about people when they were coming to me with a problem. Oftentimes, what they were looking for was not my eloquence, It was not my wisdom, not my solution, nearly as much as they just needed me to listen to them. Does that make sense? They just need someone to listen. So if you want to accomplish something of world-class proportion, become a world-class listener. Not talker, but listener. It's even scriptural. Psalm 4, verse 3 says, when the Lord hears, I will call to him. Be a listener. Number 6, express yourself honestly. Now again, this doesn't come easy for a lot of people. Like the woman who said, I just want my husband to talk to me, to know what he's thinking, to know what he's feeling. What she is doing is pleading for intimacy with her husband. She wants to be close to him, but it's hard to be close to someone that you don't really know or that won't express what's really going on in their life. And again, this is not easy because many people grow up in an environment where they're taught to repress feelings, not express feelings. For instance, here's this little boy, and he's in a store with his dad, and he sees a little toy that he wants, and he comes running up to Dad and says, oh, Dad, can I get this toy? Can I get this toy? And what he gets instead is a lecture on the sad state of the finances in their family. And so then what happens is a child feels guilty for having that desire. And they learn quickly not to express their desires. When the child expresses anger and disappointment and fear and is not able to work through those feelings, he or she will never honestly express themselves as adults. So here's a wife who asked a husband, how did you feel about what John did? His response, well, I think he was wrong. I think he should have done this, and I think he should have done that. Now, you see what's happening there? He's not telling her his feelings. She asked, how do you feel about this? He didn't tell her his feelings. He told her his thoughts. So what can you do if this is a problem area for you? Well, real simple. Take a notepad with you every day and just jot down your feelings. When the car cuts you off, how did that make you feel? Not that the car cuts you off. How did that make you feel? Write down your feeling. When the assistant that was assigned to you at work was put on another project all of a sudden and you had to carry the whole load, how did that make you feel? No extra pay, no extra compensation, no extra attaboys, attagirls. You just had to do it yourself. How did that make you feel? Write your feeling down there. Or somebody walked by you and said, wow, you look really nice today. How does that make you feel? Write it down. In fact, make 2 columns, the event and the feelings. The event was someone cut you off, a tailgater, angry. No assistant for the day, disappointed. Look nice, happy, confident. Yeah, baby, I rock, kind of a deal. All right? That was how you felt. Do that exercise on a regular basis, and you'll develop an awareness of your emotional nature. And it won't be long before you'll find yourself being able to express some of those emotions and feelings. Now, here's a classic argument. But Pastor, we both work. We have kids. Now we have grandkids. There's tons of other responsibility. How in the world can we make time for this quality time stuff? Well, to start with, you have to make it a priority. You have to sit down and say, honey, here's the deal. We got to make this priority. You need this. I know this is your love language. Or I need this. This is my love language. So it's a must for us. We have to make this priority. Because here's the deal. If you don't take care of yourselves, how can you take care of the rest of your family or responsibilities? If your love tank is drained, you can't give emotionally to what other people need. And if their tank is always drained, you're never going to receive back what you need in that regard. It's like the old oxygen mask illustration. If you're on an airplane and the oxygen mask drops down, first thing you're told to do is put mask on you, then put it on your children and people you're caring for. Take care of yourself first. Because this quality time, even if it's not your love language, is very essential to a relationship. It's like food to the body. And in fact, if time is an issue, start combining quality time with your meals. Just have your meals together and have quality time right then. Nancy and I do this a lot now. Of our evening meal in particular, and she'll set the table and we got little twinkly lights and she'll put a candle or something, you know, and we talk, and she drags it out of me finally. It takes about, I'm through with my meat and vegetables, but I get it out finally. We start expressing feelings to one another. It's hard to do. It's not always easy. It's not convenient, but it is always worth it. Number 2, let's take just a moment and look at words of affirmation. Words of affirmation. Mark Twain said, "I can live for 2 months on a good compliment." Now, if you factor that out over a year, that means 6 compliments a year was all Mark Twain needed. I doubt that that's true, but that's what he says. I don't know about you, but those I'm loving need way more than that. And so do I. How about you? Way more than 2 a month. So what are words of affirmation? Words of affirmation are words that build people up. They're words that encourage people, that challenge another person to something greater or something better. But here's the sad thing. The sad thing is so many today have never learned or have chosen to ignore the tremendous power in verbal affirmation. There's an incredible power in verbal affirmation. In fact, it's biblical. In Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21, the Bible says, "The tongue has the power of life and death." You can speak life into someone so easy. Just as easy as you can speak death into them, you can speak life into them. Proverbs 12:25. "An anxious heart weighs a man down, but a kind word cheers him up." A kind word cheers her up. In other words, an affirming word. Now, there are 3 dialects of affirming words. Let me give them to you. Number 1, complimenting words. Verbal compliments are powerful communicators of love. And they don't have to be super flowery, long, drawn-out, syrupy things to be effective. In fact, they're best expressed in just short, straightforward statements. "You look good in that shirt." "Wow, do you look good in that? Do you look nice in that dress? That's a perfect color for you." "You're the best cook ever. Look at this spread." "Your smile just makes my day. Thank you so much for giving me that smile today." "You're the best pastor ever." In fact, let's try that one right now. All ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Boy, you've affirmed me. Complimenting words have affirmed me today. It's simple, right? And what would happen to the emotional climate in the relationships in your home, at work, at school, if those involved with you in relationship heard compliments from you? If you heard compliments from them on a regular basis, what do you think that would do? I believe that would take you to a new level right there. The second dialect is encouraging words. The word encourage means to inspire to courage. All of us have areas where we feel insecure. Even the loudest, biggest clown at the party, everyone has areas where we feel insecure and where we lack courage. And that lack of courage often hinders us from accomplishing the good, positive things that we would like to do, that we would like to see happen. And then we're smothered by regrets because we didn't do that, we didn't accomplish that, and those regrets bring guilt, and the guilt leads to more regrets, and the more regrets leads to more guilt, and on it goes, and it's a vicious cycle. For instance, I've known over the years domineering husbands who pressure their wives to lose weight. Now, this can be a sensitive subject for you, and I'll be careful here, but I've seen this happen too many times. Never mind that he's fatter than the town dog, she needs to lose the weight, right? You know the town dog, right? And an uncaring man like that, I've even been at a party when this has happened, walks by and pinches her waist and says, how many of you know that's not good? You young marrieds really need to learn these kind of things I'm telling you right now. This is going to help you. Or then it says something really stupid. She walks in and says, "Honey, does this dress make me look fat?" And he said, "No, baby, it's your big old butt makes you look fat." Now that's a joke, right? It's funny, right? Probably not so much if you were her, on a serious note, you know? So we have to be very careful. And here's the deal about that. This one particular man I'm thinking about, he would say he was encouraging his wife to lose weight. He was trying to motivate her to lose weight. And even if he really believes that, his wife doesn't hear encouragement, she hears condemnation. And how many of you know condemnation is not going to spur you on to do anything? Here's the deal. You can't encourage someone to lose weight or anything else until they are ready to do it. Until a person has the desire, your words just come across as preaching. If, however, your wife or your husband comes to you and says, you know, I'm thinking about enrolling in Weight Watchers this week. I really want to get more healthy, and I think I need to lose some weight. Now you have an opportunity to offer encouragement. That's where you step up and say, honey, if you decide to do that, I tell you one thing, you'll be a success. That's one of the things I like about you. When you set your mind to doing something, boy, you do it. And don't worry about the cost of the program. I'll take care of that for you. We'll make this happen. If that's what you really want, we'll make this happen. I know you can do it. That's encouragement. That's inspiring to courage. The bottom line is verbal encouragement is about communicating to that other person, I know, I care, I'm with you, how can I help you? If you can do that, if you can accomplish that in a conversation that you're having, you're filling up someone's love tank. We're trying to show that we believe in that person and their abilities. Now, encouraging words may be difficult for you to speak, especially if this is not your primary love language. But if you live with someone, or if you're in a relationship with someone who has this as their primary love language, I promise you, it will be well worth the effort to learn how to do this. I mean, it will be great for that person, but it will be great for you too, because anytime you live with someone whose love tank is filled up, man, life is good. I mean, you know, you've heard this thing, oh, God is good. Well, I'm going to tell you, God is really good when you've got the love tank filled up with the ones you love. Number 3, the third dialect is pleasing words. You remember from our study the past few weeks, Paul said love is kind. Therefore, communicating love through affirmation means we have to utilize kind words, pleasing words. And not just the words, but the way we say our words. Our tone is very important, isn't it? The way I say something. For instance, the same sentence can have different meanings depending on the way it's expressed. I learned this a long time ago when I first became a pastor, and I was called on to go to the hospital all the time. And when I would see a new baby, or when they bring a new baby to church, you know, everybody thinks their baby's beautiful. Well, you know, I'm old enough to be able to say this. Some babies ain't beautiful. And now they grow into beauties, but I got one. One of my kids was not exactly the prettiest, but boy, he's turned into a pretty boy. But you know what I mean? So what do you do, though? You're on the spot. You're the pastor, right? And they come in and say, Pastor, huh? And so you go, wow, you know, or something. So my friend, my stock phrase was this: they show me this baby, and I go, boy, that's a baby right there. You see, I can say it two ways: is that a baby, or is that a baby? Same sentence, right? You got to be careful of your tone. Or you've heard this one before. I changed it around a little bit. Here's the sentence. I did not smack my husband today. I did not smack my husband today. I didn't smack my husband. I didn't smack my husband. I didn't smack my husband. See, I can emphasize each one of those words and make that sentence mean something entirely different. Psychologist William James says that possibly the deepest human need we have is to feel appreciated. People appreciate me by the things they say to me and the way they say those things. Words of affirmation will meet that need. So how do you do that? Well, like I told you about taking the notepad out for the quality time, if this is not your primary love language, but you think it might be a love language of someone you love, keep a notebook and just have title it words of affirmation. And whenever you read an article, whenever you're listening to the radio or watching television, whatever it is, and you hear some affirming words, you hear some positive words, some encouraging words, write those things down. Words of affirmation you find. Maybe you hear someone and they're talking to another person and they're using affirming words. Write them down. And what happens is over time you'll collect a whole list of great words and ways to communicate those to people that you love. I have several word lists that I've gone back to over the years when it comes to illustrating my talks and my teachings and messages, that kind of thing. This really works. And in particular, to that one whose primary love language is words of affirmation, you will be filling up that love tank. Now, this is a cool one because you can always come in on the side door too. In other words, try giving affirming words about the one you love to someone else, to his or her friends or his or her family. I guarantee that'll get back to her. I guarantee that'll get back to him. Talk well about that one, talk affirming about that one to other people. And along those lines, affirm your loved one in front of someone else. Hey, Pastor, this is my daughter. She's the most amazing girl ever. How do you think that little girl feels? Affirm them in front of other people. A dad came up to me after a service years ago. It's been 15 or 20 years ago. He wanted me to meet his high school son. His high school son had, now this is 20 years ago, his high school son had spiked up hair, multicolored hair, spiked up piercings, lots of ink. And here's what the man said to me. With his arm around this son, he said, Pastor, this is my son. I wanted you to meet him because he is a great kid, and I am so proud of him. And I shook the boy's hand. He gave me a big hug, and off they went. And I thought, wow, now there's a dad. Is that a dad? There's a dad. He knew how to use the words, and he meant those words. And how many of you know that boy's love tank, especially if this was his language, was really filled up? Now, one of the things that happens is when people don't, let me tell you a story. This is kind of a dark illustration, but it makes a point. Allegedly, years ago under the communist regime in Russia, they did an experiment on newborn infants. And they took 100 newborn infants, and they kept them in a laboratory setting. And the nurses that were attending these children never cuddled or talked to them. All they did was change the diapers, feed them without a word. Over the course of this time, 90 of those 100 children died. The other 10 grew up to be miserable adults and lacked any sort of success. When I withhold, even unintentionally, love from someone, when I fail those in my sphere of influence, when I fail to help them fill their love tank, keep it full, meet their emotional need of love, I'm depriving them of life. And if it's done long enough, that person will just wither away and become an emotional cripple and have nothing but regrets as they reach their old age. Does that make sense? Now, the other thing is, when you learn how to really understand what person makes a person tick, how they're wired up and how you can keep that tank filled up, you'll be like the man who was standing in a greeting card section of a store. And he was there for such a long time, one of the people working there came to him and said, "Sir, can I help you?" He said, I need a card. It's our 50th wedding anniversary. He said, 50 years ago, I could have picked out a card real easy. But now, my love for this woman is so much more deeper and complete, I can't find a card that would even express what I'm feeling. That's the kind of love you need, I need. That's the kind of love we ought to have in our lives and our families. My wife deserves to be loved that way. Her husband deserves to be loved that way. And a lot of couples have the heart for that. They want that to happen. And if they get, single adults, if they get into another relationship, that's what they desire and want. But if we don't meet the emotional need of love, it can't happen on a deeply effective manner. So learning love language is extremely important. And we're going to finalize it and kind of crystallize it next week when we look at the last three. And we'll take this assessment. It's a fun kind of a deal that we're going to do. And then we're going to talk about what love languages you have next week, okay? So those of you that are watching here online, we invite you back next week. We'll explore the next three languages of these 5. And I'll give you an opportunity to get an assessment for yourself. I can get it to you and send it to you, and I'll tell you how to do that next week, okay? So here's the deal. Share this on your timeline, will you? Because some people will see it that are not with us today. If you have any questions about love languages, about yours or your spouse, your children, whatever, you can reach me on Facebook. You can personal message me, or you can leave a comment right there. And I'll try to get back and answer you this week, okay? So thank you for joining us. Thanks for being a part. Go to our website. Check us out. Donate there if you'd like to support us financially. Safe and secure way to do it on the website. God bless you and have a great week. Okay, God, I thank you today for this whole morning we've enjoyed. What such a good time of just talking and visiting and being loved on and loving on other people here. Thank you for that. Thank you for this wonderful music that we experienced this morning that met so many needs of our hearts. And thank you for the teaching. Thank you for Gary Chapman who has